The Predator is a hunter of many talents and little weaknesses. In every skill a hunter would need, they are the best. They're stronger than their prey, they're more well armed than their prey, and they're more stealthy than their prey. So when it comes to the Predator being adapted as a killer into Dead by Daylight, it would feel like a disrespect to the character to not represent the jack-of-all-trades nature of the Predator. Any way you want to fight, they have a plan and a tool to do it better than you. They have to be the ultimate hybrid killer. They have guns for range, they have cloak for surprises, they have tracking for never letting their prey hide for very long. In this way, they would truly be Dead by Daylight's apex predator. There are 3 major powers the Predator will have to effectively manage to stay ahead of the survivors, so they cannot best him. The Predator comes in with a state-of-the-art camouflage technology, allowing them to go completely invisible to sneak up and surprise their prey before they can even react. They also have access to thermal vision, giving them insight to the environment around them, to easily locate survivors and highly progressed objectives so they can always keep their prey on the move. And lastly, when stealth is no longer an option, they gain access to their shoulder cannon/plasma caster to easily pick off distant and more capable prey. All of these come together to keep the Predator as an unpredictable, lethal, and constant threat to any survivor that is unfortunate enough to queue into him. But let's get more specific about how these powers work and the survivors can attempt to counter them. We'll start off with the most important part of the Predator's kit, and that is their cloaking. The Predator can enter a cloaked mode, making them translucent in the exact same way Wraith is. Basically, imagine how Wraith's invisibility works visually, and copy and paste that. What's not broke, don't fix it. Unlike the Wraith though, the Predator does not benefit from any speed increases while in cloak, rather staying the same movement speed as he is uncloaked, 115%, or 4.6 meters a second. But what the Predator sacrifices in speed during cloak, he makes up for in lethality. The Predator is fully able to attack survivors with a basic attack anytime he wants from his cloak, catching survivors off guard and immediately being able to punish them for it. But doing so removes the Predator from his cloak, making both him and his terror radius visible to every survivor. Cloak is then placed onto a 45-second cooldown before being able to be re-entered again. The Predator's cloak is not a completely silent state though, as the Predator will be making sounds he has heard around the entity's realm in hopes to either trick or intimidate his prey. While close enough to the Predator, the sounds of injured survivors can be heard coming from the thin air, seemingly from nowhere, and even the sounds of other terrifying killers. While these sounds can be heard by the survivors, where from exactly will be unknowable, as they are omnidirectional, like the Huntress's lullaby. You will know how close, but you'll never know where from. Now let's move on to the second biggest part of the Predator's power. When I said cloak is the most important aspect of the power, I meant it, as the other 2 parts are either stronger in it, or in the case of thermal vision, necessary. Thermal vision gives the Predator a very powerful but limited tracking tool to not only pin down survivors but manage objectives that have become very progressed. This thermal vision is only usable while the Predator is in cloak. Thermal vision is also limited by a short battery charge. The Predator can activate thermal vision whenever he wishes, but once activated cannot be turned off until the battery has fully drained. The thermal vision battery only lasts 10 seconds, but takes 60 seconds to fully recharge. The Predator is never waiting on a full battery charge though, as the battery can be turned on regardless of its level, even if that only means for 1 second. When the Predator switches to thermal vision, heat becomes the guiding force of what can and can't be seen. Generators' auras can still be seen, but depending on how much progression they have, the more heat they will give off, allowing a predator that's paying attention to know what generators they want to head towards over the others. Survivors' auras, or heat signatures, can be seen on thermal vision as well, even through walls. Regular, healthy survivors produce heat signatures from 16 meters away on thermal vision, while injured survivors who have lost a good amount of blood reduces the amount of heat they give off. Survivors who are injured will only produce heat signatures from 6 meters away in thermal vision. While the survivor is colder while injured on thermal vision, the blood they leave behind is very much burning hot, showing up very bright if in line of sight of the predator. Thermal vision only shows heat though, so scratch marks are completely invisible to the predator while in thermal vision. Thermal is a very powerful tool to be abused by the predator, but survivors are not completely without the chance to keep themselves from being spotted. All throughout the trial on the ground, there will be various pools of mud that survivors can interact with to cover themselves, significantly reducing the heat they produce. A healthy survivor who is covered in mud will only show their heat signature from 6 meters away, while an injured survivor covered in mud will produce no heat signature at all, as long as the mud is still covering their body and they remain injured. Mud stays on the survivor for a total of 60 seconds. With only 5 to 6 puddles to be found randomly around the trial, survivors will need to risk giving up a bit of optimization in what they do, or risk being discovered by the predator from pretty far away. Or just hide in a locker, and that will stop any heat from being shown at all. And the last aspect to give a survivor a chance to know whether they're screwed or not while stealthing would be that the predator's thermal vision gives a glowing bright yellow where its eyes are, showing the survivor where the predator is and that they are currently using thermal vision. And we come to the final major aspect of the predator's power, and it comes in 2 parts: targeting and the shoulder cannon. Targeting is essentially the stock of Ghostface. Aim your camera on a survivor, stalk until you get your reward, which in this case is ammo for his shoulder cannon instead of exposed. But unlike Ghostface, this is not strictly limited to being cloaked only. At any point, whether in or out of cloak, the predator can aim his shoulder cannon, reducing his movement speed to 3.08 meters a second, or 77%. So while aiming, the predator's 3 red dot sight will be seen wherever you're aiming, and when the red dot is aimed onto a survivor, it will slowly build up targeting on that specific survivor. When a survivor acquires full targeting, they are considered targeted and have their portrait marked for all survivors to see, while targeting is only shown to the predator. After a survivor becomes targeted, the predator gains access to 3 shots of his shoulder cannon, which can only be shot while out of cloak. The difference between targeting in cloak and not is that cloak gives a 50% boost to targeting buildup, making it take 6 seconds of total targeting time on a survivor while in cloak, and 9 seconds of targeting while uncloaked. Targeting never leaves survivors, whether they are injured or hooked. The only way targeting is lost is a survivor dying or becoming fully targeted. So after a survivor becomes targeted, this icon is placed around their portrait for all survivors and the predator to see, showing he has 3 shots of his shoulder cannon. Every time shoulder cannon is shot, one of these 3 red ticks is removed, until all 3 are removed and the survivor can start gaining targeting once again. Every time the predator shoots the shoulder cannon, the earliest targeted survivor is the one that loses a tick. So if all 4 survivors are targeted by the predator at once, even if he's chasing a completely different survivor, the first targeted survivor is the one that loses a tick. Shoulder cannon functions a lot like the Huntress's hatchets, hopefully besides the inconsistent hitboxes, but this is DBD, so probably not. The shoulder cannon shot will travel at 25 meters a second. This is the same speed as an unwinded hatchet, but with no fall off. It can be shot from one side of the map to the other if you aim straight forward, making its potential for very long range shots unpredictable but deadly. But before we wrap up, people will bring it up that this power in some way could be used to camp or tunnel. And while that may be true, it's also true for more than half the killers in the game. If all the powers could never be used in any way to help incentivize either camping or tunneling, this game would have never made it past a year, so it's the sad reality that sometimes the power of a serial killer is going to be used for evil. But when there is room to make it weaker without making the whole kit feel way more clunky, then good. A good way to do this would be no survivor can gain any targeting while within 12 meters of a hooked survivor, and for 2 seconds after a survivor is unhooked. It won't solve all the problems, but it sure could help. Let's talk about all the add-ons or tools and weapons the Predator could bring into the trial. Brown add-ons: Skull Trophy. Increased targeting buildup by 15% during Cloak. Flayed Prey. Decrease the time to recharge Cloak by 25%. Badmouth's Buoy Hat. Survivors give off 25% more heat during thermal vision. Leader's Lighter. Increase thermal vision recharge rate by 25%. Yellow add-ons: Wrist Gun. Survivors damaged by a shoulder cannon shot suffer the broken status effect for 60 seconds. Smart Disc. Survivors damaged by a shoulder cannon shot suffer the blindness status effect for 80 seconds. Combi Stick. Survivors damaged by a shoulder cannon shot suffer from the mangled and hemorrhage status effect for 80 seconds. Gauntlet Shield. Increased targeting buildup by 20% while uncloaked. Falcon Drone. Blood tracks stay highlighted for 3 seconds after leaving thermal vision. Green add-ons: Alien Tail Whip. Survivors put into the injured state by a basic attack will scream twice randomly over 80 seconds. Shuriken. Shoulder cannon destroys pallets and breakable walls on impact. Proximity Mines. Anytime a survivor becomes targeted, they become oblivious for 60 seconds. Harpoon. Shoulder cannon shots will ricochet once. Targeting builds 20% slower. Metallic Net. Double the total amount of Predator's thermal vision. Purple add-ons: Medicomp. Anytime the Predator is stunned, they gain a 6% haste boost for 10 seconds. Dissolving Gas. Shoulder cannon shots can pierce through survivors. Cleaner Case. While the Predator is in cloaked mode, anytime a pallet is destroyed or a generator damaged, randomly over 120 seconds, a cloaked sound imitation will be projected within an 8-meter radius of the object. Flaying Tool. The Predator's movement speed is set to 105%, or 4.2 meters a second. The Predator cannot be removed from Cloak, and the thermal vision is unlimited. Survivors give off 100% more heat. This also gives the Predator the ability to toggle in and out of thermal vision whenever they wish. Iridescence. Ceremonial Dagger. Predator, instead of gaining 3 shots per targeted, only gains 1. Survivors damaged by a shoulder cannon are instantly placed into the dying state. Targeting builds up 25% slower. Self-destruct device. 2 seconds after the Predator is stunned by any means, unleash an electric blast, damaging all downed pallets, walls, boons, generators, and incapacitating all survivors within an 8-meter radius for 30 seconds. And that is the Predator's power in Dead by Daylight. So what kind of perks would he bring into the trials to make the survivors wallow and cry? Hex Intimidating Trophy. After hooking a survivor, a totem becomes lit. The killer can destroy the totem, claiming that survivor's trophy. When a survivor's trophy is claimed, they are permanently cursed for the rest of the trial. While in the killer's terror radius, if the survivors look at the killer, they will scream and reveal their aura for 3 seconds. Survivors can see the aura of their intimidating trophy within 8 meters. If the totem is cleansed before it is claimed, the trophy is lost. If there are any dull totems left on the map, the intimidating trophy will always activate unless the survivor is already cursed. That feel when I originally had this perk at 5 seconds and then I remembered, oh yeah, the nurse exists. This would be incredibly broken on her. And some people say the nurse does not bottleneck perk design at all. Scourge Hook, Prey on display. While a survivor is hooked on a Scourge Hook, all survivors outside of Chase and 24 meters of the hooked survivor are hindered by 10% with an action speed debuff of 10%. Duel of Pity, Worthy Prey. After being stunned by a pallet during the stun animation, activate Worthy Prey. While Worthy Prey is active, every survivor in the trial is exposed. If the dueled survivor manages to stun the killer while Worthy Prey is active, they will be granted a 5-second haste of 150% and their scratch marks will be suppressed. Worthy Prey then deactivates. Worthy Prey will also end if the dueled survivor breaks chase with the killer at any point. Killers have 10 seconds to enter chase with a dueled survivor once it is activated, or it deactivates and the survivor is rewarded with the haste bonus. And here we are with the survivor for the chapter. For every predator you need Worthy Prey able to earn the reluctant respect of the universe's greatest hunter. And no, I don't want it to be Dutch.
You son of a bitch!
Don't get me wrong, I do think Arnold's Dutch is the most iconic and best Predator human character in the series that I'm aware of. And I do think it would be extremely cool to see Arnold, or really any super buff survivor running around the trial, even though it would be really strange watching Susie pick him up and place her on her shoulder. The reason I don't want Dutch is I think the likeness of Arnold is far better used for an entirely different character who is more iconic than Dutch by miles, and many people's default Arnold character, that being the Terminator. Something I do see Dead by Daylight eventually doing in some way if the game lives long enough, especially since they've already gotten the Terminator license in a game before, but yeah, we don't need to talk about that. So you could do both, but that would be extra strange seeing two Arnolds, one on each side, running around Dead by Daylight. So when it comes to this, I think passing over Arnold's Dutch is fine here, because the second best inclusion for a survivor, in my opinion, is one that would be really good for the game, as it's a type of character and community that has not been represented in the game as of yet. Naru from 2022's Prey, a Comanche warrior who goes against a more primitive and tribal version of the Predator in 1719 somewhere in the Great Plains of North America, and much like Dutch, adapts to her enemy and the situation to gain the upper hand and defeat a creature far above her in the food chain. Naru is a great pick for so many reasons. Besides just being a great character from the film, I wouldn't say iconic like I would Dutch. The role she plays is interesting, and she's definitely someone you grow to root for throughout the film. She's a competent and interesting survivor who would make a lot of sense in the world of Dead by Daylight. And the second reason she is a good pick is that she would be the first representation of a Native American survivor, and as far as I'm aware, Native American killer. Also, I'm not sure if that term is still accepted or not. Maybe something like Indigenous or Aboriginal is more preferred, so I mean no disrespect, I just don't know. But somehow, 33 chapters and 8+ years into the game, this ethnicity and community has had no presence, besides a few killers who are not based on Native American folklore. Like, we swear the hag is not a Wendigo. She's just someone relatively innocent who was starved and had to make a deal and became a flesh-hungry monster. Totally not a Wendigo at all. I bring that up specifically because I don't want a Native American character because the marginalized need representation. That is a plus, for sure. I bring it up because the various differing tribes and communities under the Native American umbrella are extremely important to the genre of horror in general. Like the hag as example again, basically just being a Wendigo, probably the most famous, iconic Native American folklore horror character, at least mainstream. Many famous horror movies and characters have inspirations from these folklore, from these people. A lot of the time, I wouldn't say the representation is good or non-stereotypical, but it is a tremendously important community to horror as a whole, and deserves more than anything else besides Jason to be represented in Dead by Daylight, the Hall of Fame of horror. It's not the Hall of Fame of slasher horror, it's the Hall of Fame of all horror. Naru is a great character who has an absolutely awesome look that would be a new taste cosmetically, as she comes from a majorly different time period than most of the characters in the game. That alone just making her a very strong survivor inclusion. So what are Naru's perks she brings in to fend off these vicious threats? Moment's Respite. When exhausted, survivors can hide under a downed pallet for a maximum of 20 seconds. During this time, survivors are unable to be harmed or interacted with in any way. If the pallet is broken, they are pushed out whatever side they are looking towards. The survivor can leave the pallet early at any time, and the perk will enter a cooldown of 100 seconds. Duality. Find a survivor's tracks left behind by pools of blood that last for 60 seconds, revealed in yellow. Reveal your auras to each other for 30 seconds and suppress both of your scratch marks and the sounds of pain from the killer during that time. Killer tracks are left behind after performing an action that lasts for 60 seconds, revealed in red. The killer's aura is revealed to all survivors for 8 seconds. The survivor activating the perk has their scratch marks and sounds of pain suppressed from the killer during that time. This perk is on a cooldown of 45 seconds. Snagged and Tagged. After rummaging through a chest, the survivor will obtain a tripwire trap. Tripwire traps can be fitted onto windows or placed on the ground to a max of 4 meters in length. When the killer steps through a tripwire, a loud noise notification is played for all the survivors, while the killer has their aura revealed and their movement speed hindered by 5% for 20 seconds. If the killer is in proximity to one of the 2 spikes placed in the ground or window, they can smash and disable a tripwire like they would a boon.